Welcome back to Hollywood Smoke for another edition of 10 Count. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Doug Fischer and Mike Montero. Gentlemen, November 19th at the T-Mobile Arena, the showdown happens on HBO pay-per-view. For all the marbles at light heavyweight, shout out to Adonis Stevenson, it is Andre Ward challenging Sergey Kovalev. And Mike, I'll go to you first. We know it's a good matchup on paper. Can it actually be a good fight on the canvas?
It's tough. The style matchup here, both guys, Kovalev has underrated craft, and I think Andre Ward has underrated strength. I think he's going to be stronger than people think on the inside against Kovalev, and what that tells me is that you're going to have the lion's share of the rounds. There's going to be a lot of feinting and jockeying for position, grappling and mauling with little bursts of activity, but it's probably going to be one punch at a time, right? It's going to be pot shotting. So I don't think we're going to get the most
one shot at a time from Andre Ward.
Yeah, but with Kovalev,
I don't think that's Kovalev's style. I think he lets both hands go. That's what makes him special.
But in this type of match, do they do that against Bernard Hopkins? Because I think that he does at times.
Yeah, it was hard because Hopkins was in survival mode and he was moving, for most of the fight after being dropped in the first round. I don't expect Andre Ward to fight quite in that manner.
I think Ward's going to be outside and then inside, and Kovalev likes to be in that mid-range distance where he can jab to your chest, he can feint with you. But once Andre gets in on him, he's going to be tapping the back of his head or something. I just think it's going to be a tough watch.
The strength factor is interesting. I agree with you, Mike. People forget Andre Ward won his gold medal at 178, not 175. So
and he's a good athlete.
Right,
he's got more of that explosive, sort of quick twitch muscle. I think he is physically stronger than the Russian. The Russian obviously has heavier hands. He hits harder. But physical strength and punching power are not always the same thing.
Doug, do you take anything away from the Alexander Brand or Sullivan Barrera fight that Andre Ward had this year?
I take nothing away from the Brand fight. That was a paid sparring session. The Sullivan Barrera fight reminds me that Andre Ward can comfortably and effectively carry 175 pounds, but he doesn't have the power that he had at super middleweight. His speed, he's brought most of that up with him to light heavyweight. But I actually think he's lost, not a lot, but maybe half a step since moving up from 168 and 175. And part of that factor might be his activity or inactivity. And part of that factor just might be the fact that he's getting older and he's settling down a little bit more in his boxing style. It happens when guys reach especially for guys who are boxers, when they reach their 30s, they settle down even more. They go less from being athletic boxers and more to ring generals.
What I found interesting in talking to both the trainer of Sullivan Barrera, that would be Abel Sanchez, and then Manuel Robles, who trained Alexander Brand. I just asked them off the cuff. I said, who do you like in this fight? They had interesting perspective. They both solidly favor Kovalev based on what they saw. That's their professional eye and their professional opinion.
I don't disagree with them.
I think this will be a grinding, one round at a time chess match. I think this will be a very difficult fight to score. I think the referee is absolutely key. And I think that'll be fought for by Rock Nation Sports and Main Events. The three judges, I think they'll be vetted out very, very carefully. Just my opinion, I think that Kovalev can grind out a tough decision. But I could see this being a fight where a lot of people, depending on who you bet on or who you like, are going to see things a certain way. I don't know. Do I think it's going to be the fight of the year? I don't see this being Yvonne Durrell, Archie Moore. Unfortunately, Doug, I kind of see this being as another fight that was highly built up and it was supposed to be this action fight, and it ended up, quite frankly, being uninspired and really tepid in terms of action. Remember that fight between Dwight Braxton and Michael Spinks?
Right.
That's what it could end up being like.
Yeah. Wasn't that like the brawl for it all?
Yeah, no brawl happened at all.
Right.
And no brawl happened at all.
I think because of Kovalev, his mentality and his style, and there's a factor that people continue to leave out when we analyze Sergey Kovalev fights, and that's his corner. And that's the people who have built his foundation. Donald Turner, an old school boxing guy, and John David Jackson, who's really refined this sort of diamond in the rough and really polished him up into what he is right now, which is the best light heavyweight in the world. These guys are astute boxing minds. and they know how to deal with various boxing styles and tactics, particularly neutralizing tactics. And, you know, I trust they've come up with something to, some sort of answer to when Andre Ward wants to hold and to grapple on the inside. And it might just be tapping him, you know, on his temple, or banging him on his sciatic nerve, or his, you know, his butt cheek, or his hip, or whatever, or his ribs, or whatever. And it may not look like much to us because it's just like little arm whacks from Kovalev, but this is Kovalev. He has heavy hands. He has knockout power in both hands. And when I look at Kovalev and his style, and I think about the best people that Andre Ward has fought, and there's three guys that stand out. There's Mikkel Kessler, there's Carl Froch, and there's Chad Dawson. And I'm going to toss out Chad Dawson. He came down from 175 to 168 and was pretty drained and did not have the best camp in the world. And he's just a completely different style. But when I look at, you know, the Super 6 tournament, that's where really Andre Ward built his name and built his reputation, and rightfully so. He became the, you know, the real super middleweight champion. But we're still looking at that super middleweight tournament, and we're continuing to give him the credit now. Like, he's ranked top 5 as a light heavyweight, and he's ranked top 5 in everybody's pound for pound. But he hasn't really shown that since that tournament. And those two guys in the tournament, they're not Kovalev. Kovalev brings more to the table than a Mikkel Kessler or a Carl Froch. He has a more complete game than a Kessler, and he has heavier hands and better technique than a Carl Froch.
Yeah, I think he's much more fluid, and I think in his own way athletic. But with all that said, Mike, you like Andre Ward in this fight.
I like Andre Ward, not by much, and I think it's going to be a controversial decision. But if you look at, you know, you talked about the ref, the judges, and at the time we're filming this, we don't know who they're going to be. I think based on the way that these stylistic matchups have occurred over the years, the benefit of the doubt in close rounds tends to go to fighters with Andre Ward's style most of the time. And I could see a scenario where two of the judges give him those close rounds and he wins a close split decision, and fans are arguing about it forever until maybe they do a rematch. But let me ask you guys a question. What is better for boxing in general, globally, if Kovalev wins or if Ward wins?
I think it's a matter of opinion. I really do. I think you could talk to a lot of boxing insiders and industry folks that think that Ward needs to win because we need more homegrown talent. We need more stars who are American, who speak English, fluent English. That's their first language. And then you have hardcore fans, and I'm probably more of a hardcore fan than a boxing insider.
Doug,
they want Kovalev because he's an action fighter, and he's willing to fight other badasses.
Potential super fights, because a fight with him and Stevenson can happen.
No,
that fight can't happen
but
with
Doug,
Ward.
I'll say this. The only way you think that a Ward victory is good for boxing, you must work for Rock Nation or from Oakland. Let's be honest. One guy brings a fan-friendly style. Nobody wants Rock Nation to have any more influence than they do. They'd rather see them out of business. One guy fights once every year for the most part, because that's the fear that a lot of people have, that if he wins this one, he's going to sit on it. Kovalev will just get right back to work.
That's true.
And he has a real promoter.
That's why, I think it's better if Kovalev wins the fight, and I favor Kovalev to win the fight.
All right.
By decision, maybe a late stoppage.
November 19th it happens. Andre Ward takes on Sergey Kovalev from the T-Mobile Arena, distributed by HBO Pay-Per-View. On behalf of Doug Fischer and Michael Montero, this is Steve Kim saying goodbye, everybody.